Hey, Emma, can you please enable the sharing so I can share my screen?
Gonna need more signing sheets. Signing sheet.
Emma, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Woo. Yes, you sounded good to me.
Oh, Emma, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you now. Thank you.
Oh, Emma, would you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Absolutely. My name is Emma Kramer. I'll put my video on for a second here. I'm here to help support Emily. I am a project assistant. Specifically, I work with grants. So I do a lot of community wildfire planning, and I also like to share information about possible grant funding opportunities.
Awesome. Thank you, Emma. And Emma's a key player in this because when we go over our risk assessment findings and then the action plan items, there are items that the communities need to take in order to make their community safer. And there are grants available to seek funding to implement what we've been identifying. So a little bit of background about our project. It's been made possible through a cooperative agreement grant from the Glen Allen BLM office. Like I said before, Copper River Forestry and Fire Protection has been working on this project for the last 4.5 years. We've been soliciting information via online and mailed surveys, attending community gatherings, public events, and formal and informal meetings. Our last meeting for the Tolsona Lake Louise area was March 2021. A challenge that we faced while creating these plans was coming up with a standardized data-driven risk assessment. We use technical specialists through BLM Fjordland Fire Solutions and other agencies to give for their input on this data-driven community risk assessment. In the end, we did not get a lot of participation from our interagency partners. We did end up contracting out for our entirety of we wrote 10 plans, and for the entirety of our 10 plans, we contracted Fjordland Fire Solutions, which is I think it's important to note that they are a state of Alaska ex-smoke jumper company. So they're all retired smoke jumpers out of Fairbanks. So they have knowledge of our state, our fuels, our topography, and they've fought fires everywhere that we're writing these plans for. By addressing concerns that we outline in our risk assessment in the action plan, there's implementation measures to reduce wildfire risk to this area, making it safer for residents and preserving its natural and cultural resources. In addition to identifying appropriate measures of this prioritized assessment findings, there's associated entities that may take on the responsibility of implementing them. We created a website through this grant as well, which is what I have displayed here. It's copperriverfirewise.org. In your pamphlets, you'll see on this side of it, there's a little insert right here. It's our website's there. There's a QR code there. There's also a QR code for a survey, which we're going to talk more about towards the end of our presentation. And then there's my contact information on the other side. So I encourage you all to take a look at our website. There's all sorts of fire information on here local for our communities. And if you go to CWPP by community, you'll see the Tolsona Lake Louise area. You click on that and it's going to take you to this area's planning and everything that we've been doing so far for this community. And I know that you guys have the Lake Louise, Tyone, Susitna area. All of those lakes are included in this plan, as are Tolsona and Crosswind Lake. So it's a larger area in your action plan, in your community wildfire protection plan. You will see that there is a map in there, which we'll go over here in just a little bit, that has the outline of the boundaries from where we cover from for this planning area. So a little bit of overview of the document. So we're going to be walking through the document, keeping in mind that the focus is on reviewing the community risk assessment and then going over the action plan. So on page 4, and actually I should back up a minute. If there's anyone online, or if you guys want to look at this document online, you just scroll down to CWPP link. You can open it in a new tab. And here it is. So on page 4, it's a justification and overview of the CWPP. On page 6, you're going to find the background, which provides information related to the overall goal of wildfire protection and land management by both state and federal agencies. It references acts, land management policy, and justification for funding. On page 7, you'll find the collaboration. These are all the contributing entities that provided input and helped to create this document. And I'm going fast, so if you have any questions, feel free to just interrupt me. Yes.
Do you have any more of the packets?
Oh,
Pass them all out. No.
I think we passed them all out, but I can totally get you one. I can send more out here. That is no problem at all. Okay, so on page 8, you're gonna see the Tolsona Lake Louise CWPP planning area. The yellow is the planning area that we are going to be talking about. You'll notice that it does share a boundary line to the west with the Glen Allen plan and to the east with the Mendelton and Nelchina plan. And in the future, this could be its own area out here with its own CWPP, but for our grant, we've included everybody in the CWPP. Because you guys are part of the borough in the future may seek funding to redo it and make it more standardized with the borough in the Matsu area. But because Lake Louise is part of the Copper River Division of Forestry and Fire Protection Response area, we included this community in our planning. On page 9, you're going to find the community profile. The community profile includes 2020 census data and an overview of critical facilities, seasonal factors that contribute to wildfire risk, and a brief wildfire history. And when you're going through this document, if you find any mistakes, whether it's grammatical, incorrect information, maybe there's a wrong road name or something like that, please tell me, because we are in the final phases of our plan, and there's only so much I can catch every time I read them. At some point, I'm like, wow, did I even reread this again, or did I just skim through it? So please, if you find anything, point it out. So looking on page 11, you're going to see our community risk assessment. This is where our risk assessment starts. This map shows vegetative fuels with colors responding to their flammability or fire danger during prime fire season. and when the fire conditions are correct. So Dan, do you want me to cover the rest of the map or do you want to take over? Okay, so the red constitutes needle bearing trees, so particularly black and white spruce, which are highly flammable. The orange tone vegetative fuels consist more of a mosaic of spruce and hardwoods and often more of an open canopy structure. Yellow tone vegetative fuels display hardwoods like willows, alders, shrubs, and grasslands. And green and blue tones show subalpine brush component near higher elevations. But in the right conditions, these areas can still burn and show resistance to controlling fire. However, they're less of a threat than the spruce component in the boreal forest. Up to this point, are there any questions?
Does this cover like what you should have as a setback from your cabin as well?
Okay, so Firewise standards, there is a Firewise booklet, an Alaska Firewise booklet that's in each of the folders here. And I have more of them if anybody needs an extra one. It doesn't specify, so this is a planning document. So
Okay.
within the action plan, you are going to see that we did identify Firewise in homes and community buildings. Now, when you go to Firewise, then you would go to the booklet and look at the specifications for that. However, it is an action item that needs to happen. So when you identify it within the CWPP and you put it as an action item and you assign responsible entities to potentially do the work, that applies an avenue for funding to get that work done. Without this document, you cannot apply for funding to get Firewise work done. You need a CWPP in place.
But as far as like cabin owners and stuff like that, there's something. That's fine.
And that's Firewise, yeah.
Okay. We can do it.
Okay, so starting on the community risk assessment, now that we've gone over the map, Dan, would you like to go over the rating elements and stuff?
Yeah,
On page 12 is where we're at.
so starting on page 12, going over the community risk assessment, and they kind of different rating elements, risk hazard analysis of available fuels inside the community of up to 1 mile. And then the other one is 1 to 10 miles out. And then barriers, looking at natural, man-made lakes, rivers, roads, you know, that kind of thing. And then fire protection resource availability. Yeah. And that's why this is a good place and time to discuss this kind of stuff. And we're aware too of, you know, resource and availability, like prime example, this summer, Chena Glacier fire popped off. Well, there was a lot of other fires in the state as well, so we didn't get that much support. So, and then community, Firewise rating, and we'll go over that as well. And then overall community rating, and then, so number 1, inside the community, you know, based on potential ignition sources surrounding fuel types, the risk of fire spreading from within the community is high. Okay. And then outside the community, the potential for large fires to impact Tolsona, Lake Louise area is high. The prevalence and high concentrations of spruce, black spruce, white spruce, mixed hardwoods, insect, beetle kill, and disease. So that overall rating is high. And then on the barriers, you guys are kind of following along. Includes water, natural, human-made features, you know, lakes, roads, rivers, that kind of thing. Let's see here, spanning the southern side of the planting area, but due to the lack of significant barriers and the concentration of spruce trees, this is going to give you a category of high. And then as we go on, so number 4 includes local and agency resources, okay? So this is where we have initial attack resources are more than 75 minutes away. Okay. Inadequate extended attack resources are more than 12 hours away. Okay. And could be longer, you know, if we get a really hot and dry summer. And it's hard to get stuff.
It's all based off of fire within the landscape across the state of Alaska and we prioritize if a fire starts in Fairbanks where structures are threatened and it's, you know, booking it towards the city or something or a community versus if we have a fire in more of a remote area that is burning in moderate, we're gonna have less of a likelihood to get those resources here than in these larger scale fires that are threatening structures. So that's why it's important that we are so remote that we do the work around our communities.
And just to kind of back up a little bit, so we've also got a fire management option map as well. And it'll define whether or not like, I'm on page 8, but just kind of, this ain't the map, but, for like Glen Allen and the core area, that's all gonna be critical, okay? And then say, for example, just kind of talking this out. So say this whole yellow section, that's all highlighted for you guys. We could put that as critical or full. And then everything else out here is gonna be limited. We'll let that burn, but everything else inside this yellow, they're gonna throw everything at it, put it out.
So the bottom of page 7 and the top of page 8 defines critical fire management options and full fire management options.
Yeah. Yeah, so they've got it there, full, modified, limited, and then different dates that it goes to. So like right now, stuff that was in modified, July 17th got converted over to limited. Just because of time of year. Let it burn, it's not gonna hurt much as long as there's no values at risk. Alright. What was I?
The barriers mentioned like VFD. And along with fire response to this community, also the VFD. Tolsona does not have their own VFD, that's Glenrich Volunteer Fire Department. So the Glenrich VFD response area is from mile 138 to 189 of the Glen Highway and from miles 0 to 14 of the Lake Louise Road. 14 to the end of the road is the Matness-Kusitna Borough response area.
Yeah.
They commingle.
What's that?
Don't have a fire below us, do they come up and help?
So there is mutual aid agreements, and I'm sure that Glenrich VFD has one with the Matness-Kusitna Borough. I mean, it's hard because you guys are along our road corridor. There's no Matness-Kusitna Borough lands until you get to like Eureka, right? And then we have this pocket here. So it's kind of one of those double-edged swords. You guys are paying taxes out here to be a part of the borough. However, the borough doesn't have the infrastructure out here that they have in the city. However, they're supporting you guys out here. And so I'm sure I can't speak for 100% certainty just because I don't know the exact answer, but I am sure that there are mutual aid agreements in order for Glenrich to come out here in the event that you guys need emergency services. Yeah.
Community firewise rating. So number 5, so landscaping, less than 35% of homes, community buildings have a clearing of flammable vegetation at least 30 feet around the structure. And that overall rating was a high. And then, so I guess backtrack. Right.
Yeah, so the community firewise rating for this area is high. We based it off of landscape, construction, water supply, and access. So landscape, less than 35%, like Dan was saying, less than 35% of homes are firewise, meaning adequate vegetation fuel is away from your structure. Things like your wood pile isn't stacked on your porch or right up against your house. There's adequate clearing. Construction, we say that less than 35% of homes are made from fire resistant or non-combustible construction materials, such as like natural wood siding or shingles instead of a tin roof, that sort of thing. And then also looking at like your roof line and making sure if you have gutters up, that they're all cleaned out, making sure you have skirting around your home. So a lot of times in the event of homes burning in fire is not necessarily because the fire came through and flattened your home. It's an ember that comes, lands on your building, goes underneath your building, and your structure catches on fire. And again, inside of your pamphlets, there is a little booklet that says Alaska Firewise on there. Those are the guidelines for firewise in your home. And then water supply, less than 35% of homes have a reliable water source. So we've been thinking about this not only just in summertime, but in wintertime too, right? Like this is an emergency planning document, so you want to make sure that you have some sort of subsurface water source that you have access to year round for, like filling of fire engines. And then access, there only exists one road in and out of the Lake Louise as well as the Tolsona Lake area. So based on those ratings, we gave this community a rating of high for escape route. Dan, do you want to take over on escape route?
Yeah, so the only road access, 2-lane road, clearly marked Glen Highway, and then Lake Louise Road. 2-lane road, clearly marked. However, rough roads, major frost heaves. And then many remote, floodplain accessibility, lakes is here in crosswind. Yeah, I'm not seeing a rating on that one. On the access,
It's the overall rating.
overall rating,
Yeah.
okay. So like, overall rating on that is still high.
And then when we look at like the escape routes and the safety zones, we've identified the Glen Highway, the Lake Louise Road, and the Tolsona Lake Road. And to my knowledge, there's no other roads, right? And then moving on to the safety zones. This is where if you have an idea or you have an edit to this, you're like, hey, there's actually a better building than what you listed here. Please let me know, because me and my counterpart, we have been looking at a lot of like local knowledge, but then also looking at a lot of satellite imagery. We're not embedded in the Lake Louise community. We are from Kenny Lake and I'm from Gacona. So like, if you guys have something better that should be listed on here, please tell me. So for safety zones, we have the Lake Louise airstrip located at mile 18.5. Also, if the mile markers are wrong or something, please tell me, because again, we're using satellite imagery and mapping. So if it's different than this, please let me know. The Lake Louise boat launch, Tolsona Lake Lodge, the Glenrich substation in Tolsona, and then the Tolsona gravel pit. Is there any other safety zones that you guys can think of, like areas in the event that we are having to evacuate people? Where should we all meet? Like maybe putting the Lake Louise Lodge on here. I don't know if this is like the natural community gathering spot where if you do have a bunch of people being evacuated from, that side of the lake, this is like where they can all go. Or maybe there's another community building out here that I don't know.
This would be probably the place most people would go.
So add that.
Sorry, Harold.
So am I hearing that that should be added?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good. And this is a living document too, so it's
Yeah, even
changing.
Yeah, even when we sign this into action, We'll go through, if there's edits or things that need to be changed on it, we can always make those changes going through the proper chain of command. We can totally make that happen. Mhm. Yeah, I'll do that. Okay, just a minute. So the overall assessment finding shows that the threat of danger from wildland fire to the communities of Tolsona and Lake Louise is high in all categories. However, due to the remoteness and the extended resource time with minimal communication and continuous spruce, these communities have been elevated to a risk hazard analysis of very high. So there is a very high risk of wildfire potential within this area. We've been lucky over the last few years that when we have had fire out here, we've been able to catch them right away. But it's important to note that because of the ratings and all of these categories being high, we elevated this because of the remoteness to very high. We also looked at wildfirerisk.org, which is a federal, it's a federal wildfire rating system. So it's not just Alaska. This is based on all of the lower 48 as well, which we understand that our fuels are different from the lower 48. That's why you're gonna see like Alaska changing wildfire environment, Alaska firewise standards, those are different than the lower 48. However, when looking at this model, it is determined that the risk of wildfire within the Lake Louise Tolsona area is also very high. It is 97% higher than other communities within the United States. So it outlines the percentages can be, so low, the percentile for low is 40th percentile, medium 40th to 70th percentile, high 70th to 90th, and anything over the 90th percentile is very high. We do have a link here within our document that you guys can go to wildfirerisk.org and check it out. There's all sorts of resources available on that website. You can do mapping, you can do different types of vegetative fuels, you can, they'll give you suggestions for what you can do in the event of what large scale wildfire. It's a very useful tool and it's free to use. Are there any questions up to this point? We're trying to go fast because I know you guys have a meeting after this too. So again, if you have any questions, please interrupt us and let us, give them to us. So looking at the action plan, which starts on page 17, by addressing the concerns and implementing appropriate measures in this prioritized assessment finding, the plan aims to reduce wildfire risk to these communities, making it safer for residents and preserving its natural and cultural resources. You can see here, we do have a prioritized assessment finding. One thing I do want to point out to you, I heard you guys talk about fire caches, and I'm curious to know more about that. Because in here we do on number 11, identify other fuels reduction projects, remote hotspots and cache locations. So if we do have a fire within this area and our response time is longer than the local volunteers out here, if we have a site that while we have pumps and hoses and we have people trained on how to use them, they can go out and start that process before we show up here. So I'm interested, I don't know if you guys want to talk about that now or if we want to circle back to it at the end.
We do have fireboxes and we also got 4.
For all business, I guess. But
Well, it's a good segue into it really quick. I mean, I don't mind if we do that really quick, just so that she can put it onto her notes.
So you do have fireboxes and
There is a system of fire caches, all 3 lakes. They have pumps, hoses, and fuel. And we are expanding or replacing some of those pumps very soon. We'll talk more about that here in the meeting.
There is a map also. Even though it does show one in the middle of the lake, there are maps that show where we have our fireboxes.
awesome. Okay, I'm definitely gonna add that to the plan and then we can, that's what I was just about to
And
say,
then the
we'll
two-
circle back around.
The 2 heli spots that I know of as of now is the channel, correct? And then the runway.
Correct. We have a state of Alaska land lease authorization to occupy some land right at the channel between Louise and Susitna. And we keep that brushed and cleared as an extra item.
And then we also have the runway here at the end of the road.
Thank you for bearing with me while I write that down. Cool, thank you. So, another, oh yeah,
One more thing, the boxes, at least in our code, are being maintained by people there. So like putting gas in, stable fuel, so they're still working with time, things like that. So that's something that needs to be in the plan. Because if people don't know how to maintain the firebox, it's of no use to them.
and are the fireboxes that you guys have out there, are they part of the community association or who's?
There's a grant that was.
Okay, so who's responsible for the fireboxes, I guess is my question.
She's my wife, we have them right at the bottom of our hill, our fire dock basically. I don't know, when this is fuel been changed, either stabilizer to fuel. I go down and I started pull it out and run it at least every summer.
Yeah,
I don't know if anybody's going over there and changing the fuel, but it's been there several years now. To my knowledge, the fuel's never been changed. So you're gonna use steel fuel, if you want to start when you need it.
correct,
That was my question, but that's right at the bottom of our house. So-
okay,
So on the boxes, the LSTCA purchased them through a grant, and we maintain those. John has been our point of contact.
okay,
We'll talk about that after the meeting, it's too, so we're not time.
yeah, no, that sounds
But,
great.
John, that's his obligation as the
We had another.
fire marshal within here, but we'll talk about that, because I think there's room. We were granted it, we have it, we're sustaining it, but I think there's room to incorporate in your plan. If they incorporate in your plan, then there may be some shared costs on that. We
Absolutely.
should look at. So is everybody okay if we talk about that with them?
Yeah, I definitely think that's a sidebar for sure. Cool. But now we have it captured and written down, so we will definitely circle back. Okay, the other thing I just want to point out is this assessment finding. We have them in prioritized order from 1st to 15th. However, when you look down at our actual action plan, you're going to notice that they are not in order. Our graphic designer did not have time to fix this before before we had this meeting. So I just wanted to point that out. Well, knowing that this is the order, we're going to go through what is on here in this order, but knowing that it's maybe not necessarily the prioritized assessment finding, but it is an assessment finding that is a priority. It just might not be the second one. It might be have gotten moved down to like the 6th, action item. So dry grasses around structures during pre-green up. We assigned some associated tasks on how to reduce that risk measure. And then responsible entities that could take that responsibility. I'm seeing here the Copper Basin Regional Housing Authority. I need to remove that. I see that. Homeowners and then the state of Alaska Division of Forestry and Fire Protection. Do you guys have any other suggestions on anyone that could be added to this? And this will go throughout the whole document. If there's anyone else that could be potentially responsible for these assessment findings. I don't, you want to do the next one? Maybe. You want to move?
Community roads do not have clear road signs. Update, and that'd be the assessment finding, the associated task, update maps, clear brush around existing road signs. And work with DOT to install new road signs. It sounds like you guys are working with borough and other entities on signage as well. Lake Louise Community Association and State of Alaska, DOT, and then forestry and fire protection. Anybody else you guys think?
I mean, maybe we could write the borough down the mountain is just to sit in a borough, because they could do some work out here too.
Yeah.
And then what's that? Yeah, if there's money attached to it, they might.
Yeah.
This is true.
Yep.
There might be worth mentioning somewhere in there that, the winter, the organized winter club,
I was gonna say the wolf pack.
Regularly's.
The wolf pack.
Club, clear and maintain liquor trails, but those to, different areas around here that you might, as they're clear, they might be more available and easier to access some of the more, properties that aren't necessarily right.
So that's a great idea.
There's trails that is.
And there is enough of those trails too. for
So
the-
we have trails now.
Yeah,
Super.
And they also do a lot of signage, I'm sure the club would not even, right, probably the trail signage.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. When they make the suggestions, are you like them, are you letting them on? Okay, sweet, thank you. So homes and businesses need to be firewise. So educating homeowners on firewising. VFD participation in home structure assessments and defensible space. Applying for firewise grant. Identifying / designating an area or equipment for community members to dispose of woody mass byproduct. That's something that we are trying to work on at forestry. It's a long haul from here to there, so maybe we can talk with the community association and see if there's something here that we can set up. We are looking at various fuels projects for our guys to work on throughout the winter. So that is definitely something that we can talk about throughout this area as well.
you say fuels projects, what do you mean?
Like fuel breaks, doing woody mass disposal, like hauling off brush, firewising homes, basically everything that we're identifying in here, planning for remote helipods, remote patch sites, and planning where the fuel breaks or shaded fuel breaks are gonna go. Access being cut off in the event of large scale wildfire, so that's another one. So like planning, what is our contingency plan if this road is compromised and you guys can't get out? What's the contingency plan?
Pretty base with James's Island.
Yes, go to the lake. That's the contingency plan for here.
And I don't know if that's something that you guys would be interested in, is having a woody disposal site out here.
What we're trying to do is we want everyone to firewise their homes. We want everyone to remove all this vegetation from around their homes. What are you gonna do with it? Make a big bonfire in your yard? Well, then you're gonna have forestry coming unless you get a large scale burn permit. And then if every fire you start, you are responsible for, whether it's a burn barrel, whether it's a campfire, anything. You're responsible for it. And the state is really making sure that everybody knows that they're responsible for it right now. So what's that? Yeah, well, winter time is during our like burn permit season, right? So spring to fall. And so we want to make it safer for people to dispose of this woody mass byproduct where we can do some sort of a controlled burn on what's been removed from your homes. So we're not having everybody just have big bonfires in the middle of their yard and starting wildfires. Response, yep.
Most people here on the lake do all their clearing in the summertime and burn them.
Perfect.
It's not feasible or for us to, cut down all your brush, throw it in a boat.
And then haul it,
and
offload
back
it.
your truck, I mean, it's.
Yeah. Absolutely.
95% of the people cut it down in the summer and.
That's perfect. So some responsible agencies or entities that could potentially help make, homes, firewise, the Bureau of Indian Affairs. Something I want to just mention about the BIA and why they're in here is they now have funds called ancestral land funds. The state of Alaska, all of it, whether it is private, public, federal, or state lands, it is all ancestral lands, meaning you can seek funding to do things that we have identified, as well as that the BIA has identified even on your private property. The Glen Ridge Volunteer Fire Department, homeowners, the Lake Louise Community Association, Lake Louise Volunteer Fire Department, the State of Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation, and the State of Alaska Division of Forestry and Fire Protection.
And then, like we were just talking about, access being cut off in the event of a large scale wildfire. So associated tasks, apply for grants to assist with homeowners in widening existing roads and driveways to support large firefighting apparatus. Identify primary and secondary escape routes and safety zones for remote access locations. And then responsible entities, we've got the BIA, Lake Louise Community Association, and State Alaska Division of Forestry. Anybody else that we could put in there?
And again, this is all, we have a survey, like I had mentioned before, on the left-hand side of your pamphlet. There is a QR code for you to take a survey. It has this action plan on there. This is what we are seeking community feedback with. So if there's something that you think about later, you can call, you can email me, you can go on there, take our survey, whichever you prefer to, is best for you.
Add Massey Borough.
Totally.
Absolutely, add Nancy Burrow on there, please.
Yep.
And then same with long response times for first responders. So supporting the VFD with training needs, and advertising for recruitment. I mean, I hear you guys that you have seats open on your board or you're about to, and like, who's gonna take them over? Who's gonna be a part of the VFD? Like, how are we gonna get people in, right? So advertising and recruitment is also listed on there. And we have Glen Ridge Volunteer Fire Department. We need to add the Lake Louise VFD, and then the Division of Forestry and Fire Protection. And that goes hand in hand with the VFD training and equipment needs. One thing that we know that all the VFD need, all of the VFDs need is radios. Their radios do not talk to forestry personnel, so we have to talk on a certain channel or get them one of our radios to have, so their truck radios do not talk to us. So that is a concern that is identified, and we hope that we can seek funding for VFDs to get radios put in.
If you need direct example of that, we can provide that in the meeting following on to.
Cool.
Our last, what we consider, not the last fire, but the last big one, communication was a challenge.
Yeah,
I mean, the local community had the fire beat down by the time the wildland guys got there. And we were running the Navy to get them out there, but before the smoke jumpers even popped silk, we already had the fire. It was just cleanup.
yeah.
But communication was rough, because we were all operating off the cell phone, and that wasn't standard from air to ground, it wasn't standard for ground to ground. And then once we were underway, it was really hard to type your phone and try to drive the truck terrain and get where we need to be. So we definitely need communicate. If we're gonna be on the responsible list, then we need to be given the tools to effectively communicate.
Would a satellite phone be something that would be beneficial in situations like that? No?
But they're gonna have dedicated communication lines that we need to be, if we're responsible, if we're gonna be held responsible, then we need to be provided what we need to meet our end of it. That's-
If we're fighting fire side by side, we need to be able to talk to each other. It's a safety concern. And so we have that on, let's see. Lack of adequate communication. So work with DOF to set up a permanent or seasonal repeater out here. That's another thing, like our radios, we don't have the best comm to our dispatch, you know, when we're out here, because we don't have the towers out here to support, to bounce our signals back and forth. Like that gets disrupted quite often. There's areas that we don't have any radio comms at all. And that's a concern for us. Safety is a huge concern for that. And then, coordinate with multiple agencies, including the EMS and VFD, and update VFD radios. So like I was saying, VFD radios, even though we work hand in hand with like Tolsona and Glen Ridge VFD, they are 9 times out of 10, if not 10 times out of 10, at every single fire that we are at locally, we cannot talk to them like we can talk to each other. And that's a major safety concern. So,
Outdated equipment.
yeah. And radios are expensive. They're anywhere from, I think, like 5 to 8 grand, as much as 10 grand per radio. So, yeah, so it's a huge chunk of change. So, but it's important that it's being identified, because then entities, agencies can seek funding to make sure that that comes to life.
This is, you know, having these CWPPs is gonna open up a lot of avenues for grant funding, Firewise funding. What else?
Yeah, everything that's in here.
There's, I mean, you name it.
I mean, develop an evacuation plan. That's another action item on here. Creating a planning organization where that's your focus, is looking at maps, making sure that you know, we have developed an evacuation plan, create a centralized community contact list. So forming a committee, maybe a subcommittee of your your community association, where that's the focus, is making sure that there is an evacuation plan for this area with a phone list that includes maps and road signs and house identifiers, adopting the Ready, Set, Go standards for the state of Alaska, and developing a phone tree or emergency notification system. So again, we put the Lake Louise Community Association, like I just said, that could be a subcommittee off of there where you guys seek funding, and that's the focus, is writing an evacuation plan, making sure that you're identifying. These associated tasks are not the one all do all, you can do more than that, but these are the minimum qualifications that should be met. Are there any questions up to this point?
Maybe we could, once we start the meeting, James, maybe we can try and discuss a committee. We had a fire committee, but maybe we can.
And then I'll just read our last few bullet points. You guys can go over the associated tasks and responsible entities, but identifying other fuels reduction projects and Hellespont/cash locations, we're gonna circle back to that, you know, after this meeting, and get that kind of planned out. I'm happy to hear that you guys do have some cash location sites, because that was definitely a concern that we came up with in our office. Again, we talked about the community woody mass disposal site. That sounds like maybe it's less of a concern for you guys out here in Lake Louise. However, I do know that it is a concern for the Tolsona communities. Protection of native heritage sites. Again, maybe that doesn't necessarily have to do with around the lake here, but maybe the surrounding lands that Otno or the Bureau of Indian Affairs, or maybe even BLM wants to have a hand in to make sure that those sites are known. Unsafe burning practices, as we know, we have had some fires out here started due to unsafe burning practices. So implementing fire debris and burning safety program into the community, holding community safety, wildfire safety events and education opportunities, and posting signage and information around the communities. And that would fall under the Division of Forestry and Fire Protection. Fire safety signage, again, at like public use areas. I know you guys have a transient community where a lot of people come out here like to recreate, and then they go home and they don't really think about what they're doing to our area when they come to it, right? I'm sure that that is a serious concern for you guys. And then public wildfire education. So just educating the community as a whole, whether you're a full-time resident or just a transient coming in and out. So moving along to the summary and updating process. As I had mentioned before, this is a living document where changes can be discussed and made at any time. A review and update of this CWPP is recommended to take place every 3 years, not to extend past 5 years. At the 10-year mark, this document will be expired. So it's important that we make sure that we are staying up to date on this, reviewing it, updating it. That will fall under the Division of Forestry and Fire Protection. And in the meantime, like I had mentioned before, there is a survey. If you can scan the QR code in your folder here. Also, if you go to our website, popriverfirewise.org, we do have the survey here as well. And you can just go on. It's literally reviewing what we just went over and then providing feedback for us. And we're interested in what you have to say. This is the last time for comment period on this document. The next meeting will be with the signatories, and then we will sign this into action.
When is that?
That is going to happen no later than the end of August, so the end of the month. September 15th, maybe the 10th. Our grant is expired and these need to be signed into place.
Okay,
You need comments by Wednesday.
We have a 2-week comment period.
so we have until,
Let's see,
Maybe
18th, yeah, 15th, 20th.
The upside is a lot of our comments that have come from here will come from notes that you've captured.
Absolutely, no, and we will make all of these changes to the document, like everything that we've already talked about. We've made notes as we were talking, adding entities, taking away entities. We will definitely make sure that all of those are made like immediately, and then I'll update the document online as soon as we get them back from our graphic designer.
A lot for you.
Super. Yeah, no, that sounds great. No, I appreciate it. Like I said, we can't write these documents without community input. It's literally a community wildfire protection plan, not a state of Alaska wildfire protection
Yes.
plan. This is written for you guys, for your communities to implement things that have been identified by the community members.
and it's for us as well as, like you said, Tolsona and surrounding
Mhm,
areas.
yep.
They have their own, okay.
Yep, so Tolsona, Crosswind, Lake Louise, Susitna, Tyone Lake are all included in this plan. Glen Allen has their own plan, Mindalton and Alchina has their own plan. And again, in this document, you can find the boundary lines underneath the CWPP map that clearly states that from this mile marker to this mile marker, extending from this milepost to that milepost is all included in the plan.
And might be able to get some more of these packets that we can
Yes.
maybe just leave here. at some point,
Absolutely.
so Community
Yeah.
members that maybe wanted them could grab them, okay.
Absolutely, I will
Perfect.
definitely print off some more of those and get them out here for you. No problem. So without further ado, if there's no more questions, thank you so much for letting us be a part of your meeting and to listening to us. We appreciate you.
Thank you, Pete.
Greatly appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay, Emma, I'm gonna go ahead and hang up.
And I do have to give credit to Emily and Jenny Mosier. They've done a lot of work on this, and I'm just kind of filling in for Jenny. I apologize. She's better looking than I am, but she's on a fire assignment, but they've done a lot of work. Jenny's put a lot of time into making those maps, those veg maps and different, so, yeah. Credit all goes to Jenny and Emily on a lot of these.
Thank you.